Welcome back to another edition of the IndyCar Preview Show. I'm Casey Campbell and joined by the channel's IndyCar expert. That, of course, is Colin Cope of Twin Checkers. Lots of practice throughout qualifications as we prepare for the 107th running of the Indianapolis 500. But before we get to that, pretty good Indy GP. Alex Palou was pretty good, picked up another win, and all different winners this year.
Yeah, 5 races, 5 winners. Can't ask for much more than that. I was there at the GP in person. It was hot.
Yeah.
Like I don't think enough people gave credit to how hot it was out there. I think it hit 90 ambient temp. And that Indy GP road course doesn't always put on the best show once it gets hotter and hotter throughout the day. But sometimes in racing, I think you just need to step back and appreciate a great performance when you see it. And that's what Alex Palou did last weekend. He just had everyone's number and he drove away. And it was kind of special to see because you could just see that gap get bigger and bigger and bigger, and no one could catch him. I think the strategy too was interesting of Rahaal's team. I don't want to say missing it, but not doing what Palou did and kind of falling back through the order. I will defend the Indy GP. I thought it was a good race, and attendance was the highest it's been in a long time, so it keeps getting bigger.
So here's the other thing. A couple things. McLaren did well, and how about Christian Lundgaard?
Yeah, he's got speed. That man can drive a car. It's Rahaal's an interesting case, and we're gonna get into that when we talk about 500 practice and qualifying. It's Fast Friday today. Lundgaard can drive a race car. It's going to be really interesting to see if he sticks with Rahal as that team continues to develop. This is their first full season in their new shop, I believe, maybe second, but they're still in a new dig. They're still figuring things out, and that's very evident. But the Indy GP was a great sign that they have speed when they have the right setup and the right situation. There was also speculation that Graham Rahal might look to leave the Rahal team as a driver in the silly season, which is interesting. But no, Christian Lundgaard is fast. I think putting him in the Hy-Vee number 45 was a great move as well, because that's a sponsor that needs their name out there if they're going to have that investment in the series. Lundgaard's fast, and I think when his contract is up, he could be a hot name, whether that's looking Andretti, Ganassi is appearing that they're going to have a lot of openings soon. He's going to be a free agent. Rahal might have a tougher time than they thought keeping him around, but they found a great prospect when they signed him.
Well, they did. All right. Now the attention focuses on the 107th running of the Indianapolis 500. And lots of obviously practice and qualifying. I know the first day got rained out, but it is. What are your takeaways from that? Because I know you've been paying attention to it as well.
Ganassi's world, and we're just living in it at the moment at the Speedway. Since 2022, last year to this year, they have just got it figured out. Ericsson, Sato this year. Sato has the fastest lap, I believe, at this point. Or no, Ericsson does. Sato did for a long part of the day yesterday. The fastest time recorded yesterday was 22.96 miles per hour, 22.9.6. That's crazy for practice speeds when you're not even having the turbo boost. We are entering a golden era of IndyCar at Indianapolis. These cars are going to get faster and faster. And I think next year with the hybrid setup, if the weight doesn't slow the cars down the corners, we could be looking at even faster speeds next year. That being said, I think one of the Ganassi cars is going to break Scott Dixon's pole record from last year on Sunday. Conditions look like they'll be right. 234 point something. I think we could see 235 depending on what we see in Fast Friday today. Conditions look like they'll be perfect for that later in the day. On Sunday, I'm hoping to be there, sitting high atop turn one. Ganassi is playing with just their teammates right now. They have got everyone's number, but it's IndyCar, so those gaps are very small. And all it would take is, spinning out in turn two today in Fast Friday, and one of those Ganassi cars could find themselves fighting to even make the field. That's how tight the margins are. But the other factor, apart from the fact that Ganassi is just very fast and seems to be fast in every setup, whether it's qualifying, no toe, in a pack. IndyCar implemented a bunch of new aero components. They're people with more engineering expertise than me, such like Marshall Pruitt at racer.com, has gotten deep into what those are designed to do. And they were attributed to better racing at Texas this year, where you could kind of make runs and make gaps disappear, which you couldn't really do at Texas or anywhere else really at those super speedway ovals, Texas and Indianapolis at the moment. Those are in effect at the Indianapolis 500 this year. And it appears when you watch practice that it is making a difference. Cars third or fourth, maybe sometimes fifth in line can get up to the rear wing of the car in front. That if you got a chance to watch practice, it looks crazy. The happy hour the last 2 days looks incredible. The passing that's happening. But let's filter through that a second. People are on new tires, low fuel runs. Not all the cars are equal, like they've all pitted on the same lap and would be in the race. So that could be misleading. And two, Pato O'Ward, every time he's been interviewed on Peacock asking, do you feel like the changes have helped? He's saying, no, it feels the same. A, whether that's a driver preference, B, whether that's a McLaren issue, or C, whether that's a full field thing. He's the only one I've seen that's really been adamant that it doesn't feel different to me. And he finished second last year in Indianapolis, so I think he knows what he's talking about. It's just very interesting to see his reaction versus someone like Kyle Kirkwood yesterday was like, yeah, it feels great. I have so much more control. I can make runs that I couldn't make last year. Who's to say what the case will be come race day? I think Monday is going to be a very interesting practice once the field has been set, and carb day as well on Friday next week. That's when you're tuning your race setup, and you're going to be very focused on, okay, now I know I'm going to be starting like 15th. I'm going to be 15th in line, maybe up to 12th if I do a good start on lap one. Can I actually leapfrog up? And then you run into the situation of fuel saving, and then the strategy starts, right? Race strategy versus I have set up the front wing and the rear wing a certain way. I'm very interested to see practice, but we have to go through qualifying first. And it should be a very interesting Saturday. And, look out today. If you get a chance to watch Fast Friday, look for the teams that are struggling. Look for teams that run into issues. Fast Friday, usually one or two bigger teams are going to hit the wall. They're going to wreck their car today because they're trying to find how fast they can go. Those teams are the ones that are going to have trouble come Sunday and might find themselves a last row shootout. James Hinchcliffe in 2018, I was watching Bump Day history today just to get primed and kind of get the juices flowing. The reason Hinchcliffe was in that situation is because of incidents and they missed the setup. A team that should know better, but it's Indianapolis. You have to be on your game the whole month. And now is really when it's going to pay dividends, where we went and ran that extra lap and we lost a minute or two of setup that we could have been doing. Or we stayed out an extra lap and it really helped us learn something. All those little things are going to add up, and they could amount to half a mile an hour that keeps you out of the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah. So who's obviously, besides Ganassi, who's really been impressive so far?
I think Simon Pagenaud's time yesterday, which was in line, don't get me wrong. I don't think it's indicative of how fast Meyer Shank and the Andretti cars will be. I think they're a step behind Ganassi and the Honda camp. But Pagenaud putting up that big time was very impressive to me, because that Meyer Shank team, after the 2021 500 where Elio won, they have not had the same level of performance since then. Like, that's a snap your finger. Pagenaud putting up that big time in the number 60 was impressive because it shows they've got race pace, which Castroneves was pretty fast that year in qualifying, but it's not like he was a pole contender. I think he maybe was in that fast 9 at the time, but it didn't feel like he was just there, right? He wasn't really in the Dixon, Ed Carpenter kind of level of he's a contender for pole day, but he had a fast car in race day and was able to make passes. If Pagenaud's in that situation, he could be a dark horse to win the 500, because that was an impressive time yesterday, and he was slicing and dicing in traffic. Um, Penske seems like they are improving on last year, but are they in that top tier? I don't know yet. It's too early to say. I don't know that they'll be on pole, and I don't know that they'll be in the first couple rows at this stage. Ed Carpenter Racing, two thumbs up. They're on track for their ideal month of May, which is they have a shot to put three cars up front. Connor Daly, Ed Carpenter himself, and Rinus VK, who, if anyone, is gonna challenge Ganassi, it'd be VK, who put it on the front row last year, and was the fastest of the Chevys until he wrecked early in the 500 after the first pit stops. Um, uh, Ed Carpenter Racing knows how to do Indianapolis. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay, so on now we've talked about who's impressed and who are you most concerned about?
I put a hot take out there yesterday. Based, if you look at the practice speeds, you're like, I don't know how you're coming to this conclusion. Something in my gut tells me Rahal won't be in the last row shootout. The reason I say this is because when you look at the timing sheets yesterday, Catherine Legg in the one-off Indy 500 appearance was leading the team in the no-toe speeds. Not everyone set a time, and the boost isn't on yet, but they are focusing a lot on trying to get their cars, tuned for qualifying. They didn't play a lot in packs. That's something that they're going to figure out on Monday, essentially, is what it seems like. And I think that time put in is going to pay off. I don't think they're going to compete for the fast 12. They just don't have that kind of speed. But I think Rahal is focused so much on just trying to get their cars in the field. I think they will, and I think they can avoid the last row shootout. That hopefully won't age like milk. I think that's going to come down to today, if with single car runs with the turbo boost on Fast Friday, see what trap speeds look like, see what the average looks like on lap 3 and lap 4 of runs, especially in the heat of the day, because not all 4 Rahal cars are going to have ideal conditions. I think they'll be fine, though. They focus so much on it. I don't not as confident as when I said that yesterday, but I still believe that they can avoid a last row shootout. Juncos, I'm a little worried about. They have been battling wicked cars all month, even back to the April test. Callum Ilott, the car was wicked, hard to control. They've sort of figured it out. Canapino, in the beautiful Argentina themed car, you hate to send anyone home at Indianapolis, especially when it's just one car. He's been good in traffic. I have not seen the single car speed. So I could see both Juncos cars in the last row shootout. It's hard. It feels bad dunking on people, but RC Enerson and the Able Motorsports team, they're just new. The program came together late. They were doing their first laps on Wednesday, especially with that delay of practice. So they're a favorite. If there are odds, they're probably the favorite to go home. I don't know that they will, because they're putting up competitive times. They're figuring things out really fast. So credit to them. I think they'll put up a good fight. And then, I'm going to say Devlin DeFrancesco with Andretti. Andretti has not impressed me with their single car speeds. They're on par with Rahal times. So if you're going to say Rahal hasn't figured it out, when you look at the sheet, one bad lap from any of the Andretti cars, they could be finding themselves in a last row shootout at this point. Now, we're doing this before Fast Friday starts, the Fast Friday practice, where you add that boost. Some cars will flip completely, where they feel great and suddenly they do not. Or they couldn't figure it out and suddenly they have all kinds of speed. It happens all the time in Indianapolis. So we'll see what happens, but that's what I'm thinking for the last row. And I'm not confident saying that there's not a clear favorite to go home. Where I think a couple years ago, the Top Gun Racing entry, when RC Enerson went with them, that seemed like, okay, they don't really have it figured out. Like, thanks for showing up, but it doesn't seem like you can cut it. Even a couple years ago, Will Power was battling to make it into the race and hit the wall in the last row shootout. That could have very easily sent Will Power home. Fine margins will define your success at Indianapolis. And tomorrow, there will be more cars trying to make it into the top 25
Oh yeah.
throughout the day, just so they don't even have to worry about getting back in line. Um, that'll be very fun if you can spend some time on Peacock tomorrow on Saturday or NBC later in the day, just seeing who can bump their way in tomorrow so they don't even have to worry about setting a time. That's going to be your Juncos. That's going to be your Ray Hall. That's going to be maybe Andretti. And definitely RC Anderson and Able Motorsports. Can they avoid a last row shootout on Sunday? Because that's not a position you want to have yourself in.
Right. All right. Well, how do you think qualifying is gonna? I know you kind of just talked about this, but who do you how do you think qualifying goes out there? Who are some of the favorites to get? So actually, just explain how qualifying is going to work tomorrow for people.
Yeah, so Saturday, after practice today, all the drivers in reverse order, or sorry, not reverse order, in order of the practice results today, are going to randomly draw a name, their name from a hat. So randomized position tomorrow, 1 through 34. Once those times are set, the rest of the day, I believe it's from about 11 till about 6. There are exact times. Check indycar.com for the exact times. Go out, go back in line, try to set a faster time. There are 2 lanes though. There's the regular lane where you just get back in time and try to beat your time. If you don't, okay, whatever. You still have your old time. There's a priority lane where you sign a document that eliminates your time from the Indianapolis 500. If you get in that lane, you better go faster, or whatever your time is the one that's going to stick. So if you're Callum Islet and you're 33rd and you're like, I think we can go faster, you sign that paper, you get in the priority lane, and you go back out there. If you wreck, you're 34th. If you figured it out and you're 12th, great. But you get priority over everyone else in that line. A couple years ago, I believe we saw this with the James Hinchcliffe situation where no one was in the priority lane. It was Pippa Mann and James Hinchcliffe were bumped from the field at that point. No one was ready to go. And Alex Rossi in the regular lane was ready to go out on track because he was trying to make the fast 9 at that time. He ended up qualifying 10th, which is kind of like, oh, he almost did it. But no one was in the priority lane that had the pass. So if you're in that lane on the left, you just go out, right? So that'll be the excitement on Saturday. At that point, positions 13 through 30 are locked in once the gun sounds on Saturday evening. So the top 12, they'll move into rounds on Sunday, as will 31st, 32nd, 33rd, and 34th. So then on Sunday, the fast 12 will all get to set a time, trying to make the fast 6. At the conclusion of that session, 7 through 12 are locked in. Next comes the last row shootout. 34th, 33rd, 32nd, and 31st all get one shot to make the Indianapolis 500. Who's to say how that goes? That's some of the higher drama in recent years has been just trying to get that. And I think some traditionalists might say, well, they should have more time to do that, whatever. It's thrilling. And if you're trying to avoid that situation, go faster and make the top 30 on Saturday. After that session, the slowest car will go home. I believe there's even time allotted. Nope. Never mind. After that session, the fast 6 for pole. That's going to be some blazing fast speeds. I predicted at the beginning of this, and I still believe it. The conditions should be perfect that we break Scott Dixon's pole record from last year. The cars look faster this year overall. And that's going to be a thrilling session. It's very possible that someone steps over and maybe even spins out, trying to go even faster. We're getting to that point in the day at that point. And it should be good entertainment. I think it's the best qualifying format, the most thrilling qualifying format in motorsports. Nothing compares to it.
Oh, it does not. It should be very, very interesting to see what happens this weekend. So tune into Peacock today, tomorrow, Sunday, and pretty much keep it locked in because it's going to be a fun weekend. So this is and it all leads up to the 107th running of the Indianapolis 500, which will be not this coming Sunday, but next Sunday. And obviously we'll be back to preview that once the lineup's all set and all ready to go. So that'll be fun. All right, Colin, thanks so much for coming on. Should be a fun qualifying session. We'll talk to you next week.